Oh, what's going on? What's going on? So, man, obviously we all know by now that Plant versus Canelo Alvarez is not happening at all. It's a done deal. And some people are like, why exactly did it happen? You know what I mean? What's going on when it pertains to that? And the reality of the situation is that Plant was never an option to begin with. What they were basically doing with Plant is he was just like a carrot that was being kind of handed out there to everybody. Like, oh, I want that's the guy that we're gonna fight. Kind of like with Demetrius and the undisputed at 160 pounds. It was, I want to be undisputed at 160 pounds. I want to be undisputed at 160 pounds. So, still watch me fight this bum ass fighters that I'm fighting, or this lower tier fighters that you might not necessarily want to see me fight. And then he fought a good fight against Danny Jacobs. I did like that fight. That was a good fight, where Canelo won that by 1 round. It was kind of ironic if Jacobs had just pushed in. He's always been a great fighter, but he just doesn't push it to that next gear that's necessary to come out victorious. So that was actually a good win for him. And then it was time to do undisputed, and Demetrius Andres had the belt. It wasn't Billy Joe Saunders anymore. It was Demetrius Andres, or it was Demetrius Andres that had the belt. So he decided he wasn't going to go that route. He gave up 2 of his belts, and then he ended up moving up. But the whole point of why everybody was looking at those fights was getting ready for undisputed. So, went up to 175, got his belt against Kovalev, who, again, he grabbed the lowest hanging fruit. He didn't take on Beterbiev, who had knocked out, Vostick, and he was a unified champion, monster, taking everybody out, the number 1 guy in the division. He didn't take him on. At that time, Bivol was killing it too at that particular time. Bivol hasn't looked the same as lately, but he's like, nah, I'm not gonna mess with him either. He was looking spectacular at that time. And Kovalev had came off being knocked out back to back, got his belt back. Then the next fight got the break speed out of him. He won, but he almost got stopped in that fight as well. And then he had a very short time frame to get ready for Canelo. But then after that fight, did Canelo take on Beterbiev? The number 1 guy in the division? No. He moved on to something else. So, when now he was at 168 pounds, it was the same type of thing. I'm going for undisputed. I'm going for undisputed. And for this particular situation, I thought that he might actually go for undisputed just due to the fact that he wasn't getting paid the same amount as he was before. Before, he was getting like 30-something plus $1 million from the zone, guaranteed bread. It didn't matter who he fought. These morons were paying him back to fight anybody. So he was making a killing when it came to that. But when he came, when they restructured his deal and he came back, he's only getting paid about $15 million. He's getting paid $15 million guaranteed, and then he's making the money off his gates. There's no back end. People can talk all they want to, but there's no back end money because his viewerships are not that high. He had 1.2 million views, I believe, on one of his fights that showed that actually gave us the numbers, concurrent views. That was worldwide. In the United States, there's only 600,000 concurrent. That means there's a whole bunch of people who have 2 devices going on, at the same time. Like, like that Netflix account, when you have, I could be watching Netflix, your girl could be watching Netflix. Some people have, 3 things. But, I think the zone had like 3 things. 3 different people could be watching it. Or let's say, but just in case I'm wrong, 2 people. Let's say 2 people. But that's still multiple people that could be watching it. That's why they went with the concurrent numbers, because the regular numbers weren't going to necessarily look that good. So, the viewership aren't coming in like that. And one of the weird things they try to do now is say, oh, he's making $15 million guaranteed, but with the pay-per-views, he's making 35. Like, 35, where's the 20 million coming from? There are no pay-per-views like that. People, they do have this quote pay-per-view thing, but people aren't buying him like that. That's why you never hear about Canelo's numbers, ever, at all. So, but he's still making good money. He's still bringing in 15 plus his gates. I'm sure he still brings home over 20-something million. A fight, which is nothing to sneeze at. But a situation like this where Fox is offering you $40 million, substantially more than you're used to getting, that you've been getting, and then on top of that, you got the back end, and then what you're going to have as far as the gate with the promotion, and the fact of this being undisputed, Plant having the background that he has and the things that he's come through, millions of people watching him on a regular basis when he fights on Fox. Like, you're talking about Canelo making $60+ million. Easy. 60 and up. There's no ceiling like it is when he's with the zone. So I was thinking, okay, maybe he's really gonna go do that, and also just due to the fact that, he did have a deal set up, from PBC, before, which was a 3-fight deal, $75 million plus back end, but then he ended up going back to DAZN and fighting with DAZN and signing with Eddie Hearn for a 3-fight deal. That's what he ended up doing, taking actually substantially less money. And that's a part that I missed. I should have saw that part where he was offered $75 million with no ceiling. So fights with people like Charlo, with Benavidez, with Caleb Plant. You're looking at him putting himself into a space where he's making $40+ million every single fight. And he said no to that. I should have looked at that part. So which means clearly it's not all the way also about the money. Even though he would make substantially more money, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to go for that. So that's the one part that I missed. So it shouldn't be a surprise that when it comes to this particular situation, he would walk away from such a substantial deal like that, and take on this. Because I think all the way from back, even if you look way back to his Golden Boy days when he was fighting on HBO, it was the same type of thing. It was the same type of thing because he's taking on these other lower tier opponents when he could have been taking on Charlo in the unification. He could have been taking on a Demetrius Andrade in the unification. He could have been taking on the other Charlo, Jamel and Jamal, all in unifications and making a substantial amount of money, huge gates, huge pay-per-view numbers, no ceiling. But he chose to take on the Amir Khans of the world instead. He chose to do those fights. He fought Lara once. It was a close fight. He said, now we're not going to do that again. So he's kind of been doing these type of fights for a while. And then from then on, he comes over to DAZN. Obviously, he's doing his thing where they're paying him a substantial amount of money, for fighting nobodies. And like, I was like, he's not going to fight on these other dudes. Because as long as they keep paying him that kind of money, that kind of bread, he's not moving. He's going to stay doing it. If these morons are going to give him that kind of cash for that caliber of fights, that's what he's going to continue to do. But once that got removed, again, I thought that, hey, he's possibly going to go do this. There's going to be just too much. Substantial is just going to be too much there for him. But, obviously Tim is not all about that money. He's willing to leave money on the table. He wants to put himself into a space where he's gonna make really good money, but also just keep picking from the lowest, hanging fruit. So out of everybody, Bivol has one who hasn't necessarily been looking the best. So it's like, okay, let's go do the Bivol thing. He's only gonna have like 4 weeks to train, 4 weeks to get his sparring partners and things of that nature, and we'll go that route instead and still get a good amount of money. Still probably get maybe 15-20 million, especially with now they're able to take this deal that that Fox was going to give him and take this to DAZN and use that as leverage. Just like the previous money that they had before, they were able to, that 3-fight deal, they probably were able to bring that and kind of use that as leverage as well, where he wasn't going to make as much money, but the danger also wasn't going to be the same. The danger wasn't going to be the same. So I think it's that type of thing where he wants to put himself into a space where he believes he's going to continue winning, but still make good money, but he's okay with not necessarily maximizing his dollars. He's okay with that part of it as well. So that's what it looks like it's going to be, because with that Plant situation, he was given everything. He was given everything that he wanted. They put it to him in a platter. The only thing was that no one's going to give you, especially with someone who's not signed to them, they're not giving you $40 million and saying that, hey, if this guy gets sick, we're just going to put whoever in there and still give you the same amount of money. It's not going to happen. Fights of this nature, you always just postpone them, whatever it is. Or if you want to still fight, you fight somebody else, but you get paid substantially less money. That's just how it happens when it comes to fights of this caliber. And when it comes to someone like Eddie Hearn, he's cool with doing this type of thing as well. He's cool with negotiating with somebody, understanding that he has no intentions of fighting them. Let's use this particular name. Let's use this low-hanging fruit where it's like, hey, we want to do Undisputed at 160, but then not do it. Hey, we want to do Undisputed at 168. We want to do it real bad, but then not do it. They're cool with that. And I started questioning it at the second that Eddie Hearn was like, the second Eddie Hearn said, hey, You know, I don't know. They want to do a 3-fight deal, and Canelo doesn't want to do that. He wants to be a free agent, this and that. And I was like, nah, there's something going on now, because PBC's not trying to force you to do anything. That's not even how they do business. It's never been how they do business. So I already knew there was something sketchy when it came to that. Then when it came to this aspect, it was like, okay, I guess last minute, oh, we want a rematch clause, which the whole time they weren't talking about. Oh, we want this amount from the gate. Oh, we want this, we want that. It's just the way Eddie Hearn does that. We just keep plugging in new things until we can find that one thing that makes you say, no, we're done. We're not going to do it. Or if you don't find that, like in the Deontay Wilder situation, where Deontay Wilder's like, you know what, F it. I'll take a $12 million flat fee to fight, Anthony Joshua. Cool, send me the contract. And I'll sign it. You know, where he's basically saying F it, which is ridiculous, because it's a fight where it's going to gross over $100 million plus. You know, and he's like, no, F it. I'll take 12 million flat. And what does Eddie Hearn do? Basically, they say, oh, well, we have to fight Povetkin because the WO said we have to do this, we have to do that. But then the fight doesn't get announced for like another month or two. You know, he'll end up just doing that. You know, so this was basically that type of situation as well. You know, like kind of with the Devin Haney and Russell Jr. Same type of thing. Oh, we want you to sign options on your contract. Oh, what's it called? These people have to, certify the fights. Have to say okay to the fight. And even though this is supposed to be a term sheet, we have it set up in a way where it's actually a contract. And just keep doing BS like that. Oh, well, we have to do it on this particular date. Like, nah, I can't do it. I need at least 8 weeks to say, because, hey, he said he needs at least 8 full weeks to train. So, like, no, we can't do it in the date. It's like, well, that's what it is right there. You can't do it in a date? Fine, we're going to move on. And if he said yes to that date, it would have been something else. And when I say all this thing, I'm not even saying all these fighters are scared or anything like that. I'm just saying the people that they're with, this is how they operate. And when it comes to Canelo, he's his own man now, so we can't say, well, because the people quote he's with. But what he's actually done is he's no longer with Golden Boy, but he's kept the Golden Boy blueprint with him. You know what I mean? He's kept that Golden Boy blueprint with him. He's not letting go of that. He's been flowing like that basically his entire career, and all he's done is put himself into a space where that chunk that he was given to Golden Boy, that's out of here now. He's able to take that huge chunk and keep it to himself now. So even with him getting paid less money, he's still pretty much probably around the same way he was getting before, just due to the fact that Golden Boy was taking a huge chunk out of his paycheck, a huge chunk. But that's what it is. The fight's not happening. During the build-up, you should hear a whole lot about them revisiting the Caleb Plant fight. You should hear them talking about Charlo still. You should hear them talking about Beterbiev probably a lot. You're going to hear a lot of Beterbiev probably, in a quote unification after this fight. But the reality is he's not going to fight any of those guys. There's a guy coming up, the WBO, I believe, or the WBA. One of those two is vacant right now, and they're going to have some British guy fight someone else in order to get that belt. And when that happens, that's going to be who Canelo's going to fight next. And they're going to talk about, hey, when we get that, we're going to be going for undisputed at 175, which they're not. But it is what it is. Time goes on. You can still kind of miss certain things here and there, but eventually you get a clear picture of what people are, what their blueprints are, and what they do. But for now, like, subscribe, share. I'm out.